All right. Let's hear from Mike. What do you say, Big Mike? All right, good. Good to see you. Hey, thanks for coming out. I know you have better things to do probably, but thank you for your time.
No, they're here. You know what I mean? The fans are here. It's Sunday, a three-day show. How's your weekend been so far?
Good. Good people, good turnout. I enjoy these.
Yeah.
I haven't been in Oklahoma City probably in years. Yeah, we used to. I was part of a group here. Is that better?
Ooh, yeah, that's a sexy voice. That's sexy, yeah.
Yeah, well, I was part of a group in the early '80s called Hollywood All-Stars. So we were just about actors, athletes that would travel around the country and Canada. In Canada, we would play the professional hockey teams in celebrity softball games. In America, we would play all the NFL football teams in a celebrity softball game just prior to any Major League Baseball game at that stadium. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. So that
fun.
was the last time you were in OKC? Was that the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or the last time you were traveling around?
You know, it was early '80s, and I was probably doing some of the TED stuff, like, where, I don't know, but let's party, man, let's party.
So who knew
Those
at that
the old
time
days,
that
man,
you bring it back and
thank God
play
that's
yourself?
over, yeah.
How did you get started? I mean, I know, did you start off more as an athlete and in sports and things like that, and then get into acting a little later on?
Well, I went in the Marine Corps quickly. I went in the Marine Corps right out of high school. I wanted to be a lifer. I started playing Marine Corps football, and I said, I think maybe the NFL needs me now. So I left the Corps in '76 and went in '72 and showed up at the Seattle Seahawks, and they said, no, we don't need you, okay? So that was my football. I played one season on their training team called the Burien Flyers.
Very cool.
And just didn't have that desire, that desire anymore.
Yeah.
Same time I read an article about Clint Eastwood, because that would have been '76, and he'd already been in the business for 21 or 22 years. I said, I don't know if I could do what he's accomplished, but I'd like to give it a try. So a year later, '77, that's 40 years ago this year, that's when I arrived in Hollywood, yeah.
Very nice. And you just kind of just made the decision, just go for it, just moved on with
Well,
it?
yeah, but I had some I prayed about it. I didn't hear any real audible voice, but I knew I had to use some kind of wisdom, and I had to give myself parameters and short-term goals. So I gave it a 6-month interval deal, meaning every 6 months, Mike, I had to be progressing forward.
Yeah.
If within any 6-month interval I found myself digressing or stepping backwards, I said, I'm done. But sure enough, I got there, got a job, always get a job. I was waiting tables, bartending, whatever I had to do to pay the bills, because that's the key thing I share with everybody who asks me, what advice do you give me? I say, well, what's your second skill set or your second degree? Because it's all about provision. It's about paying your bills.
Yeah.
And then I got accepted to an acting class, and I got a commercial agent, and next thing you knew, I think in late '77, I'm doing a beer commercial with the legend Jerry West. Right? You know Jerry West, Lakers? Yeah, and just that kind of, when you're young, you sort of embellish certain jobs when they ask you, because if it's not released yet, they ask you, what have you been doing? Well, I said, I just worked with Jerry West. In '77, that was huge.
Yeah,
okay?
right.
It was huge. Same thing in my first movie. I was doing a movie in my first movie in '78.
This is 10?
At 10 with Bo Derek. Now, nobody knew Bo Derek, but they knew Blake Edwards, they knew Julie Andrews, they were legends. A few people knew Dudley Moore, and they would ask me, when Dino De Laurentiis was talking to me about Flash Gordon, he said, so what are you doing? I said, I'm doing this big movie with Blake Edwards. Even though my part was really minimal, he said, well, what kind of part do you have? I said, huge, huge. Knowing it's not released yet, we're still filming. So you embellish things a little bit, and yeah.
Well, that was smart, like you said, about setting the 6-month goals. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people go out to LA and Hollywood and they get lost. You get stuck, waiting. So it's nice that you set yourself up like that. It makes a lot of sense.
You can't look at it like Hollywood. You have to look at it like it's business. It's
right.
Any job. I mean, if you get lost in the hoopla or Hollywood, you gotta delete that. You gotta eliminate that, because bottom line. And let me give you some quick statistics, and it really brings it from Hollywood to reality when I tell you that 3% of every actor in the world, only 3% can pay their bills just on movie and TV deals, salary. That means 97% of every actor in the world has to have a secondary income to pay their day-to-day bills. Think about that, 97%. So it's all about provision and providing. And I love these crazy stories with these embellished, I did it too, but
Yeah.
if fabricated, when you hear a lot of actors saying, well, when they ask them, well, why did you decide to do that movie? Well, I had to think, no, you did it because the phone had not been ringing for 6 months. That's why you did the job. Now, there are, obviously a very small percentage. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, that 3% that can pay their bills, that 3%, I would say 99.9% of that 3% is probably making $200,000 or less a year, or maybe $250,000. So there's only a teeny, what's that, 1,000th of 1% that is a bankable name that can pick and choose, So yeah, that's a very important statistic.
Well, and you continue to work, you know what I mean? Like, obviously we'll talk about Flash, because that's, but then you've been nonstop, ever since, and all
Well, no, it
different
has
types of
not been
things.
nonstop. No, I mean, 40 years? Well, in the early years, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
But still, I mean, but here's the deal. And even with those statistics and that history and the do's and don'ts, nobody was mentoring me and telling me, okay, babe, by the way, Sam, okay, you're in the #1 series this year. Okay, you're making, let's just use an even number, okay? $1 million, okay? Well, that's only 4 to 6 months of work, okay? But you're not getting them, if your salary was $1 million, you're not getting $1 million, guys, okay? IRS back then was taking $400,000, somewhere around there. Agents, representation, anywhere from 15 to 25%.
Yeah.
I was paying out probably 31%, not of the net, of the gross, okay? So let's take $1 million, okay? So 400 grand IRS, I was paying 31, let's just say 30% of the million. That's how much? That's 300,000? Okay, so that leaves me with how much? I paid out, that's 700 grand so far, right? Okay, 300,000. Now I gotta start paying some bills, right? Maybe the phone's not gonna ring for another month. Now with this 300,000 of paying my bills, did I go out and buy the big, huge house and the Ferrari? Or did I get the little 4-cylinder, a practical car and the smaller house? Yeah. Well, when you're young, you don't normally do that. So really, my first year or two, I was probably close to bankruptcy, because my point is, I was living way beyond my means, because I had, it's still my doing, you can't point fingers, it's big boy rules.
Right.
I had representation saying, oh, just keep spending, the money's gonna keep rolling. Well, that's not true. I mean, even if the money is rolling, you better be living below your standard of living. And that's why I tell people, well, I got a savings account. I said, well, that's good, but do you have an emergency fund? Like, if you're not working for 6 months, do you have 6 months of every penny you need to live and to pay every single bill? If not, that means you're tapping into your savings. It means you got absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So I learned the hard way. Millions, lost it. Millions again, lost it. And then I finally got married to a wise woman who said, knock off the nonsense, okay? Get over yourself. Stop it.
This is great, huh? Career finance with Sam Jones, everybody.
That's what it is.
You have $1 million. And be careful with it. No, that's awesome.
With most men that I encourage in a abrasive way, and my wife says I'm abrasively encouraging to most men, okay? But only because I don't want them to make the same foolish mistakes I made. I mean, it's practical thinking. My pastor tells me, if you're going to read anything in the Bible, read the book of Proverbs, because this is what it says. There's really no gray area. If you choose this way, this decision, that's wisdom, And the end result, the consequences are going to be good.
Yeah.
You're going to have a really good end result. Now, if you make this kind of decision, that's foolish. These are the consequences. Now you got to deal with it. You got to do a lot of damage control. So it took me a lot of years, as my wife would say, to get over me.
Yeah.
And then I think me and maybe half the men I know, I think it's insanity. I think it's insanity because we make the same redundant choices thinking we're going to have a different end result. That's madness. That is insanity. So that's kind of my message to all the guys, get over yourself, go get a job, even if it's not, if you're the actor. And I learned just 15 years ago, stop labeling myself, and I say this to most men, stop labeling yourself as, okay, you're a physicist, you're a scientist, you're a truck driver, you're an actor. No, that should not be the label. My label for me should be a working man. That should be the label, no matter what I need to do to provide for me and my family. That's what it should be. So when I got a hold of that, it became life-changing.
Yeah.
It really did. Yeah.
Well, it had to be. I mean, you said, you were foolish with your money in the beginning, but it had to be exciting at the time, to be involved with a movie with Blake Edwards and Dudley Moore and Bo Derek at the time, when people know, and then to go immediately into that, like a big budget picture, you know what I mean, that was having fun, as like Flash Gordon. Yeah.
35 million.
And had that back to back.
In 1979, that budget was 35 million.
Yeah.
So what would be the inflation? I mean, it'd be 250, 300 million right now.
Oh my gosh.
That's 38 years ago.
Yeah.
2 more years, you can say 40 years ago. Okay?
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Question.
Oh yes, I had a question. When you were